All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. We made it, my brethren. We at the 12 o'clock hour. That was the hour it used to be at one time years ago on Power Up and that. So shout out to that, Sister Jordan there. Got the old lady on there, and then uh, she's the father had really encouraged and blessed her another whole year. That's good. That's good. Can't do nothing but get more mature in that. Is that right? So praise Yah. All right, all right. Normally, what we do, and of course on the Gorian calendar, there's Hebrew. We know that's not our New Year, but this is the New Year, and of course of where we at in 2025, right? Those of us that made it, and so because we are in dual citizenship, we look at the things and recognize those things and know how to walk in the covenant with the Most High, but yet don't get totally assimilated into the situation. So we don't want to do that. But normally in a Gorian calendar type thing of what we have in that, we normally start on January the 1st. And what we do, we have a Proverbs challenge, and we normally do it every year since the time that we begin this. And we read a chapter a day. So we read one chapter a day for 31 days. And I think that's one of the reasons why, we had to get a month that had 31 days in it. And so that's what we do. And then each time we have a challenge. And so I think this year the challenge is to write a verse. And I think I said the first verse, but only said that, and then I did correct that. So pick out a verse in the chapter, and I'm telling you this for those that may want to join us in this. Pick out a verse, and then you write that verse in Hebrew, right? So just one verse, whatever verse that you have chosen, or something that may come out or stand out to you, you do that, right? And the next level of challenge is you write the whole chapter in whatever translations that you have. So you will write the whole chapter out. That'd be good. The whole chapter. So if it's chapter one, chapter two, and then you go ahead and continue that. Now, one thing of the challenge is we call it being a finisher. If you want to be a finisher, then you have to do it in a proper manner. So day one, you have to read all of day one. That's the reading is there. So I don't know if I mentioned that because sometimes I think I'm more focused on the doing of that. But the doing of that also is either to read or to listen to it, right? And when I say listen, normally we have the Proverbs up, of course, on the YouTube channel. So you can go there. And when you look, and then I may put it on the website as well. Maybe I'll do something like that too. But you can go there and then you can follow through. So you can listen to it or you can read it, follow through, listen to it. You can read it and listen at the same time, however your heart desires, but it will be there. And I was trying to get it up earlier, but I was having some difficulties because I was going to show it here. But maybe I can somehow pull it up and then maybe we could listen to it or something like that on this. But to get back to what I'm saying, that it is, like I say, on the YouTube channel. So if you go there, you can listen to it, and we'll be putting up the whole 31 chapters in that. And right now we are redoing it. So Proverbs of Mishlei is up right now from 1 to 7, right? And then we also have like a podcast that it has always been finished. I think we finished that a couple of years ago or whatever, but we are in the process of redoing that too as well. So you can listen to it there in that. So you will definitely follow all the way through to be the finisher again. You have to make sure that you do it on the day that it is acquired. So day one, day two, day three, right? So you couldn't go back. Now, the purpose is to go ahead and finish, but you won't be classified as the finisher. You just be running with us with the group. So you will come in sort of like first place or whatever, but you'll be running with the group. And don't give up. If you this happened to be your first time and all of that. Just continue on. But the finisher is the one that does it properly and ends it at the end in that. So it's a real good thing. And you may be one that just want to just read it. That's another one. You can also read it. And if you read it and it's your first time, maybe it's your first time reading Proverbs all the way through in one setting like that for 31 days, or all the way through, or maybe a second time. You can also be a finisher in that area too, as well, right? Okay, I think, and each time for the month, we will, whatever date that it is, like the day is the first, then that's what we'll do. And then the next day, I think is the 8th or the 7th, 8th, and we would look at the 8th chapter. So each time on Power Up, we would look at it, kind of pull different areas and, see what's on our heart about that. Try to encourage you each time. And we'll just begin to build through the whole month like that. And that's going to be exciting. Even at the assembly on the day that the Shabbat falls on, whatever date that is, then we will do that. We'll go over that. Even in the teaching for that morning, sort of be that particular verse in that. And then, of course, normally we have the Torah study, but most time we'll go through the Proverbs in that. Whatever chapters we have since the last time we went through it, whatever chapters that we needed to do, then we'll go through that as well. All right. So that's good. You can always go to the website, B'nai Israel, to be one word, the number 12, right? .com. You can go there and send us an email at the end of this and see and let us know if you was a finisher for that. We want to reward the finishers in that. So I was going to say we'll follow up more on that. May have to send me a picture of the proof now. We'd take your word for it. But go ahead and get on board now. Some of you may be looking at this a little later, or it might be tomorrow, or just go ahead now. That'll be we'll have a little mercy on you. Whatever day you pick that up, you can catch up, but you will have to catch up with us, and then pick up from there. And we may throw you in there as the finisher as well, right? So if you see this, say the third day, that would be the third chapter. So if you can finish 1 through 3, and then be faithful in the rest of that time, then you can do it by the rules that I was just said just to hear before, right? So you do that, and you can make it, right? You can make it. So come on and join us in this, and it's exciting because it kind of puts us all in the same mind frame, and it sort of has us to think about the same thing in our lives and encouraging one another in that. So it's a good focus. It's a good focus in that. So we want to do that and follow through on that. So we'll jump right in there. We'll see who we got today. All right, we have a few here with us, and grateful for all of you and in that. So piling up. And Lisa's in the room. There may be some that's listening that's not in the room at this time. So, all right. So that's an outstanding situation, right? In that. So we're gonna jump right in here, my fellows, in that, and we'll do a shout out to everyone there. And let me see here. I wanted to pull up something here, I guess, to make sure that I get it right. Yeah, at the 12 o'clock hour. What memories that brings? It brings about a little memory on my end as well. So it's a good thing. Good thing. And then I think the reason I switch is because that's when Yehoshua will start joining me on that. And then, of course, Jedediah slid on, decided he wanted to get in the boat. So we let him get in the boat with us in that. And this, in the future here, we will have some guests. Well, they won't be guests in the sense of we do want to have the ladies to join us, right? And so that'll give us a different view and flavor of what's going on, important view from a perspective of that of virtuous women, right? And that's good. I think I done froze up already, didn't I? Okay, I'm back. Is I'm back? Oh yeah, I'm back. You look like it froze a little bit. I don't know.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it did. I guess that scares somebody when you freeze up like that. That's just in your life. In that. All right. Okay, we're gonna jump right in here to verse. I'm gonna do verse one. Well, chapter. We'll do this. Dive right into chapter one, and then we can look at verse one or whatever verses you guys wanted to start out with in that. We of course when I was reading it, it's sort of like you're dealing with the fear of the Father, and knowing that that's the beginning of all things, right? So when we think about fearing Yah, how can we explain this concept? You know, how can we really explain that? The fear of Him in that. And then, of course, because we know it's tied with biblical wisdom. That's what it's tied with. Tied with biblical wisdom. I had got stuck on verse 2, but I'm going to let Jedediah come on and jump right in here. And whatever you guys go, then I can pull up a side alongside of you guys, and we'll go through those things. That verse 2 is really where I got stuck at, and once I got stuck there, trying to look up different words, different meanings, and different things like that. So that's where I ended up at, right? In that. So it's good. The whole chapter is good. So we'll just know certain verse, but whatever verse you guys have on your heart from this short time of being together and encouraging one another in that, just come on up and get what the Father has for you.
Shalom, Elder. Uh,
Shalom.
all praise to the Most High. I guess this does feel a little weird with all this daylight,
Yeah, it does.
doing this in the middle of the day. It's different, but praise God, we here. And like you said earlier, praise God for blessing my wife with another year. Um, also, this when you said you was in verse 2, I guess between verse 2 and 5 is where I was at. Is one of the things that I saw when I was reading this morning. Um, But I'll just go straight to verse 5. It says, "The wise one hears and increase learning, and the understanding one gives wise counsel."
Mm,
And this is so many scriptures you can use to go and to parallel this verse right here. But when it comes to the word of Yah, it's always been about hearing. And when you hear the word of Yah, I always ask myself, like, what is it doing for me in my life? And to increase learning is good in the aspect of your learning is geared towards serving the Father in righteousness and truth. Because a lot of the learning that we can do today, we can get caught up in things that really truly don't add up to
mm-hmm.
anything when it comes to serving the Father. And so when I'm looking at this verse is talking about increasing learning in Yah. And then at the second part of the verse, it says, "And the understanding one gets wise counsel."
Mm,
And that counsel, it comes from the Father, and it could come in different ways.
mm-hmm.
So when I went to James 1:5, it says, "Now if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask Elohim, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him." So, but at the same time, we also got to have that heart to want
Mm-hmm.
that wisdom and to gain that wisdom. And the Father will always be there for us to give us the wisdom and understanding that we need when it comes to serving Him. And I also look at that scripture as well when it says in the understanding back in Proverbs 5, the second half of it, and the understanding one gets wise counsel. So I also think of those who I can go to get counsel when it comes to being here on earth, because the Father has provided us with leaders. He has provided us with brothers and sisters. And it depends on the situation that we're in. Where would I go get my counsel for certain things? And I always look to the shepherd first. I look to the elder first, and that's another form of the Father providing us the wisdom that we need, and to make sure that we're getting it from the right person. Because Ecclesiastes 7 verse 5 says, "It's better to hear the rebuke of the wise than from men to hear the song of fools." So am I getting my wisdom or my counsel from a wise man, or am I getting it from a foolish person? And that's where we, as servants of the Father, we want to make sure that um, we putting ourselves in a proper position to get the good counsel. Because if we know the story about Jeroboam and Rehoboam, you know, uh, one of them went and sought counsel not from the elders. Jeroboam, I believe it was. He didn't go to get counsel from the wise men. He went and got it basically from his friends. I always look at it like he went and got counsel from his high school friends. And which is something that he shouldn't have done. And that's when the kingdom split. We all know that's the Father's will. But based off that one decision of going to seek wise counsel, he chose the foolish side rather than the side of wisdom. And also wanted to pull a word in here at the end of verse 5, Proverbs 1, verse 5. I did pull a word in the
Okay. All
Hebrew. I
right.
want to run that real quick.
All right.
Let
Good.
me
Good.
get to it. All right. So again, that's in Proverbs 1 and 5, the word, the English word you see counsel there. When you read in different verses, it is say will acquire wise counsel. And the Hebrew word is takvolot. And basically that's a future tense word. So it's like I will do something. So this word takvulot is basically saying that I'm going to gain, or I'm going to acquire some type of understanding. I'm going to the Father. I'm going to gain that wisdom and understanding
Good.
from
Good.
someone that's within my life. So it's an action that you're doing, and it's something that we as servants of Yah want to make sure that we are getting wise counsel before we do anything. Uh, I even try to practice even before I make certain purchases. I go to the Father, like, do I really need this? It's about like big purchases or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if I buy a bag of chips, that's one thing, but I'm finna make this big purchase. Father, do I really need this? Do I need to get this right now? And also, for some, they may need to go to leadership, and leadership would be there to help you get wise counsel as well. Especially like, let's take buying a car, for instance. Your first time buying a car, you go buy a car and you like, oh man, I just bought this car. Oh man, how much money you put on it? Oh, are you financing it? Okay, that's nice. What's your APR? 18%. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. How do you get that? If you
Right.
would have
Right.
sought counsel, you wouldn't have been finessed like that. You know what I'm saying? So going to someone who is wiser could be someone who has bought plenty of cars over the years, or
Correct.
someone someone
Right.
someone could be in the community who used to sell cars,
Right.
so they can
Exactly.
tell you how to do everything about going about getting a good deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why when I ran this scripture, it just speaks volume, because it's just so many times I know in my life I didn't seek the Father when I made decisions. I didn't go try to get wise counsel from those who were in my life. I just made a decision, and a lot of it was hasty, and it was impulsive. So
Good.
that's just one of the scriptures that stuck out to me, Elder. Like you said, from verse 2, but verse 2 all the way to verse 5, it goes together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that was good because, like you say, you trying to gain when you gave us the definition, trying to gain the ability. a counsel to gain that. And when you was bringing out someone who is like ready, paraphrasing here, who is ready to hear it and to learn the wise counsel. You have to be ready to do that, because sometimes if you already want to do something and the counsel come up against that, right, you have to be willing to submit to the wise counsel, whatever that is. If you wanted that car real bad, like you were saying, 18%, somebody tell you that's a little bit too high. But if you really wanted that car, sometimes you'll override that particular counsel on that and go ahead and do it your way. So sometimes the benefit of having, say, wise counsel, and then been ready to require that, and then once I require that counsel, then I want to take that counsel and use it in my life. Just like you were saying, use it in my life. Also, when you were saying about even just seeking the Father, I think that was really good, because I think sometimes we have to realize, me seeking the Father is asking you about the car, right? It's asking you about that car, because you have say, if you was the salesman, I'm just saying, if you had the wisdom about that to let me know that's a little too high, then I have to realize that maybe, if I'm seeking the will of the Father, or seeking what I should do, he's going to speak to others, right? So the 18 is, you say that's a little too high. I'm just saying, maybe I don't know, in this day and time, I'm just going to say 10. 10 is better, or if you do this, or don't put down that much, or all of that. So now I have to listen for the voice, because sometimes people say, I'm going to pray about it, I'm going to ask the Father. But if something that you want to do gets in the way, you can't hear the counsel around you, because the Father's going to use the counsel around you to speak to you, you know. And so sometimes it's not like you're sitting at the table, okay, okay, Father, should I do 18%? And you kind of wait for the answer. Because what you do is you start doing your own thing sometimes. So sometimes it's in investigation. We have a wealth of information about different things on finances and everything else. And through those searching and seeking and trying to find, then that's what you'll have. You'll have those things together, and we'll try to seek and find those things together, in that. So that's what we definitely need to do here. I think I hit the wrong button there. Want to keep everybody here. Definitely wanted to do and to acquire of that wise counsel. And I think you, like I say, you just laid that out and really given us that we have to be ready to understand and ready to do that. So willing, we have to be a willing people. Sometimes we have the misunderstanding about that, because like I say, the wealth of wisdom in that. Now, you can be in covenant or not in covenant and still look at this same verse and realize that it is wise to get counsel on finances. So somebody always need to know, or need to know more in that. But truly, it was given to those that are, set apart. But it's definitely others can use it. So you can still use this. The difference is, we only stop at the human element of the wisdom, right? If you're not in covenant with him, so it still work. If you talk to somebody and they said, oh, instead of 18 you need to do 10, and they may not be in the covenant, they may be part of the world, but that's still good advice. They may be expert in stocks, or in all of that. That's still expert advice, or the doctors or whatever. They don't have to be in the covenant. That's still advice. It's still, you're going to gain wisdom. You're going to gain what to learn and what to do, what not to do. You'll still do that, but that's still not, there's another element when you're thinking about being in a covenant with the Father, right? It's some more elements there. And so the other element is to make sure that when we talk to others, our brothers and sisters, that's in covenant, right, walking the things out, of that, that's when you get the wisdom from above. One of the verses tells us that you get wisdom from above. So there's different from a wisdom of the above, and then this natural wisdom, right? And that natural wisdom, you can operate in it, and that natural wisdom would be right, but the wisdom from above is just a little different. And so we'll get into that maybe one day. I'm gonna let Yehoshua come up, and maybe he can share with us his verses, a verse, however he wants to go forth in that.
Praise Yah. Well, I mean, you done said all that's in my notes, so I
Okay,
guess
all
we can
right.
turn it. No, that was good. Praise Yah. As soon as you said, James, you went to the book of Yaakov, I was like, oh man, you got a camera over here or something. No, but I praise Yah because his Ruach is with those who fear him, and may he be increased, may his name be exalted in the authority of Yeshua. So I'm grateful to be here with you today, More and my brother.
Yes.
So I agree with you. Verse 2 definitely was grabbing out. Actually, I've got a lot on just the whole thing. But verse 2 really starts. I know some people want formula when it comes down to the word, and I think they want A plus B equals C, and they want to use that. That can be found in the word. It can be, but it's not everywhere. It's not the way we make it out to be. But I really did want to just echo when you brought out Jeroboam versus Rehoboam. That was a great example about when you said that about getting advice. Um, sometimes those who are on our level, they can't really answer us according to that higher level of wisdom, because it's gained through experience. It comes through experience. And just listening to what you and Jedediah were saying right there, yeah, about the counsel from Yah, it's I really like the way you said that, because we kind of forget that people have become wise through their own means, like you said, through the knowledge, or the way you said it was like natural. But then there's the wisdom that, like you said, is from above, which that came from Yah, and you really tapped on it a little bit, that it does open up a little bit. And I think what gets us so confused is in that process, instead of thinking that this wisdom that came from Yah is the superior thing, sometimes we just lean on our own understanding, and we kind of just have that heart conversation without going to the outside to get, that final word from the wise. Just speaking on what you were saying in verse 5, I
Hmm.
really like that. And it really made me think about the way people interpret that as hindsight. I consider hindsight one of the hardest ways to learn, because you've already made the mistake. You've already you've already realized that it was wrong, and the process up until that point was based on just the way you see it. Um, Instead of going to the wise and Yah, which already know those tried and true methods, like you were bringing out with the different APR rates, and how much you could put on a down payment, and so on and so forth, as good examples, because they've done that before. But it sometimes just that wanting to be right in my own eyes, following my own understanding, it really can cause us to not see the advice from Yah. And like you said, even when it comes to outside sources, I remember Moshe in the writings, he got counsel from his father-in-law.
Hmm.
And there's a
Hmm.
lot of confusion over what type of individual he was.
Right,
But still, when
right.
it was all said and done, Yah actually eventually said the exact same thing to Moshe that his father-in-law told him in the natural. So
Hmm.
was that spiritual advice? I think someone would have to take a look at that. But what really screams out at me, I really go with the first, first the whole thing, but the first five, the first half, because it kind of breaks in. The narrative changes in Proverbs
Hmm.
1, you
Hmm.
know. And what I really like in the beginning, it will say like, these are the proverbs of Shlomo, son of David. I
Hmm.
really like that, because for me, it's telling me that your wisdom should begin at home. It should be
Hmm.
something that starts from parent to child, and that this pursuit that Shlomo had, was, these aren't things that he's writing down. Some people like to say this particular book was written, later in his life.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm
right.
thinking that when you look at, because we have three books from this man in our scriptures, and they all kind of break into different forms. Songs of Solomon being maybe more youthful, and then Koheleth being more of the wiser, and then here we get
Hmm.
Mishle may fall somewhere in the middle, as they say. But I really like that. It's just that even in this, he's saying that my father taught me this, and there's a verse that I just always screams out to me. And Yeshua said, "You'll never be greater than your teacher." So even in all this wisdom that Shlomo was bringing forth here, he's saying this. This isn't an original thought. These are things I got from my dad and my mom, and here
Hmm.
I'm going to share them with you, and so on and so forth. So it's just really different for the next king who was once a prince to still consider himself lesser than the former king. I think that's just a really great wisdom in that. And what really screams out to me in verse 2, in the English, it says, "For knowing wisdom and discipline, for understanding the words of understanding." So this is that formula part I was looking at. So it breaks up wisdom, discipline, understanding. And then in that, there are words of understanding. And so the words there for wisdom is the Hebrew word chokmah.
Hmm.
The word there for discipline is the Hebrew word musar. And the word for understanding is the Hebrew word binah. And what's so cool about that is when it comes to chokmah, it's telling us about, like I said earlier, it's a skill or a
Yes, yes,
cunning.
yeah.
It's something that came through experience. A lot of us just want, to receive a letter one day and read it. Now I've got special powers or something like that. At least that's how I used to think about it. But now I realize this takes years of
Hmm.
trial and error, success and failure, and willing to get up after multiple mistakes for us to actually become wise. And of course, yoking ourselves with the wise in that process. So you make less mistakes in the process. So I see the wisdom is more as a reward to those who have seeked Yah, sought Yah, and now they've been trained by it. They've been trained and they've acquired
Good.
all this knowledge over a
Oh, that's
long
good.
period of time. And the idea is that no one just becomes wise instantly,
Wow. Awesome.
and we really think that that's the process sometimes. And even just to echo what my brother was saying in James 1, it says, if you lack wisdom, ask, because Yah will give it to you. And in the next verse, it says, but you should ask in belief, not doubting. For if you do, it's like you're in a wave on the sea. And ultimately, he ends up in verse 8 saying that that's instability. So I think
Hmm.
sometimes when we look at wisdom as some instant gratification, it causes us to become unstable because we need to wait on this process of becoming
Hmm.
wise. It's going to be a learning process, and in doing so, you'll encounter instruction. If you want to become wise, you're going to encounter instruction. That's the word for musar. It's translated as
Hmm.
discipline here, but the word there is instruction. I really like this word because it comes from the word prince,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
would be
Hmm.
which would be sar. So what's awesome about that is in the ancient form, it describes the picture of turning your head. So they're trying to say that this wisdom that you're trying to get will come in the form of an instruction that's so captivating, it'll get your attention.
Yes,
It'll
yes.
cause you to look at it. Similar to when Moshe was he was shepherding his father's flock, and then he said, "Let me turn and see this great sight." He could
Hmm.
have just ignored it, but it got his attention to see the burning bush, and then he drew nearer afterwards. And that's the process of becoming wise. You're going to
Hmm.
encounter instruction. If you accept it, you will turn to it, and it'll grow greater in your eyes as you walk towards something. It gets bigger, right? So that's the idea that we're going after when we're acquiring wisdom. And the thing is, a ruler or a prince or someone who's in charge, a commander, they command your attention. So the
Hmm.
father's word should have that captive, that it should hold you captive like that. So And again, if we switch the word musar to the Hebrew word yisar, we'll get the word instructor. So then again, we can see how this wisdom giver is also an instructor. And then we'll get to binah, understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, there was one other thing that was cool about the word musar. Um, that you can also say yes, ruler or prince or noble, but you can also get to the words yoke. So what
Mm-hmm.
I liked about that is that when you are seeking the wisdom and the instruction, it'll yoke you. It'll cause you to be attached. And I remember even the Messiah said, learn of me. So he was making that example of himself being someone you could be yoked to.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked that. And with understanding Binah, the root there, that word is deep because you're gonna start at the word build, then you can go all the way into sons. Yeah, it can
Mm-hmm.
really get really awesome. But the root understanding there is the word bana, which means to build. And this
Mm-hmm.
is what it tells you. It's an intelligence that is conveyed through the skill of your hand. So this is something you actually put into practice. Like, have you ever seen somebody, drive a skid steer or 18 wheeler? When they get in a tight situation and they have to maneuver the vehicle with expertise, you would say that person understands what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you're judging that based upon the critical situation they're in. We all think we have great skills when we're doing something like, just flowing through traffic commonly, but what do you do when the jam comes unexpectedly?
Yeah.
That
Good.
would be
Good.
a sign of your understanding.
Yes.
And it really shows the importance of your ability to make distinction in between one thing and another. So I really liked that. And all of this comes from, this book we call Mishlei. And I like that it is titled that because Mishlei it can mean a lot of different things. And, really where it's trying to get us to understand is comparisons. This compared to that, excuse me, and which one is better. And in the verse 3, it opens up with receiving discipline. So I like that again, is that this is something you need to take for yourself. If you want this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, this instruction, you have to get it. You have to take it. You have to want it. You have to
Mm-hmm.
go after it because it's not just going to fall in your lap and it's not going to grow up
Right.
overnight. And with all of that, it falls together in verse 3. I look at it as verse 4 is the wise are very generous and they're willing to give what they have. But you, again, like I was saying, you need to seek it, and then seek it with the right heart because there is a, I think the youthfulness of a person is attracted to wisdom. The ones that want to, it's this youthful place. And I mean it that way because sometimes we can become know-it-alls. And when I become a
Mm-hmm.
know-it-all, there's
Mm-hmm.
no need for me to become wise anymore. I already understand all things. I don't ask questions. I don't. I'm not the type of person. I already know that. I've been there, done that. I know it. But I believe that youthful side of us kind of dwells where the naive part is more with the immature part or just the unlearned part. That's the part of our heart that seeks this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and instruction and correction because you've learned through hindsight that you don't know what you need to know. So now you want to learn how to make these the right decisions from the beginning. And as I learned from you, you had said if you start correctly, if you start something right, you can also finish it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just where it's leading me for now.
Yeah, man, that was good. You had so much good stuff in there. You guys are just laying that table out, and it's good to eat of. This is some good
Praise
food right
Jah.
here. Yeah, it's good to eat of in that. And to follow, I like when you said about the skill, because the difference is the person could have that skill. Say when I used to drive a 18 wheeler even myself, right? And then there's different levels from when I began, and then others their skills could be greater, right? Because they have more experience, and that's what you was trying to say is you can still have more experience, right? So somebody been doing
Mhm.
something for 20 years has 20 years of experience. Somebody doing it for 30 years has the 30 years experience. Well, I've been doing it for 20 years. I'm just using an example. That 30-year person, he has 10 more years of experience, right? And so you never get confident because the one that been doing it 40 years, then they have 40 years experience. And so the longer you are in life, right, the more experience you get because what you do is you increase what you already know. Other words, you sharpen what you already know, right? So, and it's based like say on this it's three of us here. According to what we're doing, we have different years of experience, right? So you yourself, if you are a technician with printers, whatever, right? So your skill level of that is different from my skill level, different from Jedediah's, right? So the wisdom that you pour from is according to how much experience that person has, right? So, just because, say, in a sense, I'm the oldest does not mean that I'm the oldest and have the more experience in your techno field, right? So what we do is we look to you. So sometimes those of us that, when I'm just dealing with skill here, we need to look to someone else when they have more of the skill, no matter what the age is, right? No matter what the age is, if they have more skills, then that's what we look to. And I'm sure of that, right? And then the same thing about the military. Uh, you had never been in the military, but Jedediah and I have, right? So we wouldn't come to you about the military experience. You know what I'm saying? You would come to us, Jedediah would, I say I would go to Jedediah if he'd been in longer, in that process, but he has an idea because you could still go in and according to what time you went in, what century or what when you went, what time frame you went in, it was differently, right? It was different.
Mhm.
One time you went through basic training. If they said gave you a certain chord, a stress level, then you couldn't say nothing to them. When I went in, wasn't no such thing as a stress level, right? So you can go in different times, right, and have that. So according to what you're doing, if you're working in a garden, the same thing. I think when you're doing something and it's always predicated on those that's around you, right? If we're working in a garden, then we'll probably look to Jedediah and then you. I think you did some gardening. Was that your wife? Was
I
that you
have.
or
We both
you have?
have.
Okay, all right. So I don't know on which level, but I would kind of be in the background to listen to you guys on that. But I think you said that we call it that language a know-it-all. If I think I'm a know-it-all, just because I looked at it, I did see the documentary on it, right? I read about it, but you guys have the skill because you put your hands to it. That's what you were saying earlier when you were talking about the word there. I forget which word it was, but you were talking about how you put your hands to it or you turn to it, right? And so you put your hands to it, right? So you guys, even though I had read the book, people don't understand that the wisdom and understanding the instruction. That's what it was, and I think it was verse 2 you was talking about the instructions, receiving the instructions has to come from you guys because you guys have already done it. The thing is, just because I read a book does not mean that I know and understand it, because sometimes the book says this, but you can't do it like the book said according to where you at. The book is an idea.
Mhm.
It's ideal situations. It's all of that. And if you was a mechanic, I'm telling you, when you look at the manual, it's not the same way because they're not gonna tell you all the parts you need to move before you get to that one
Mhm.
part, right? In that. So all of those things are different skill levels just on the natural, right? Just on the natural in that. And so the experience from above, though, right? If I'm a mechanic, that's one thing, but I can't go to the mechanic that's not in covenant and look to him for wisdom from above. He doesn't know anything about it, right? Because he is not serving the Most High, or she, or whoever it might be, right? So I can look to them from wisdom for the car, but I can't look from them wisdom of above. And that's where this is where our problem comes in at when we talking about working, talking about living and walking, should I say? Boy, my words today. Walking and following through in those things. We have to look for wisdom though from above. I'm just using that terminology of those that's in covenant. You need to get wisdom from about our scriptures and how to walk from those that already have walked this path. So we are people that always take the ancient path, right? And then once
Hallelujah.
we find it, then we'll walk in it, won't we? We'll walk in those
Yes, sir.
things. So that's what we need to do is make sure that we find that ancient path and then we start walking in it. But I can't get that ancient path just because I looked at this, I read this, or whatever. That ancient past wisdom, as we were saying, is saying that it's an experience, and then it's like I say, it's ongoing. Because sometimes people say that it works like this and it doesn't work like that, right? In that, I guess I done froze up again. I must be talking too much. They froze me up again, but can y'all can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay.
You know,
So, huh? Okay, so that's the thing is to follow through to make sure that we ask those that has walked this path. That's where we get our information from. So just like the situation when I was talking about the menu earlier, it's just the same thing. It's not just the menu in that is how we follow through and all of that, right? So the from a wisdom of above is different. It's different. And so you have to make sure because when what like we was talking today, there's instructions here. You could be skillful in these things, you can receive that, but there is a difference. There is a difference. We're talking about training, we're talking about discipleship, and we're talking about following through, in that. So I'm sure both of you have great young men, and I'm sure they look to you for the wisdom. Look to you for that wisdom, and you give them the wisdom that you have. Now, here's the thing that with parents, you can only give them the wisdom that you have, right? That's the reason it's so good to have a community because there's normally other people in the community that they can pour from,
Hmm.
that they grow with, that they grow to love with, that they see their life, right? And they can pour, and then we pour from one another. It's always like that. But sometimes what happens with the parents don't have the wisdom and they pass that to the children. Now the children don't have the wisdom, the proper wisdom to do anything, right? And so most time they're getting it from their parents, and then you can have outside sources maybe when they go to school, maybe what they have friends or something like that on the natural. They're going to pick up different things, right? But if the parents don't have the proper wisdom, some parents, I'm just talking about the natural wisdom. Some parents, we ain't talking about the wisdom from above yet. They just don't have the natural wisdom that they need, right? They don't have that. So we have to make sure that we'll be able to discover those things, in that. So since I froze up, that means I need to maybe to shut up now. All right, Jedediah, you can come on
No.
and give us some more of that. And it's been beautiful. Thank you guys. This is a good place to eat on today. I guess it's at 12 o'clock. That's the lunch hour. So we having some good lunch right now. So come on and continue to bless us with those things you might have in your heart.
oh yes, sir. And this chapter continues to flow. I like in verse 8 it says, "My son, heed the discipline of your father, and do not forsake the Torah of your mother." And we know that the Torah is what binds us to the Father, and that's also with the word that I was bringing out earlier. With counsel, it's like ropes. What do ropes do? It ties something down to something, and that's what ties us to the Father, is the keeping of the Torah. And the verse that
Amen.
I really wanted to touch on was verse 10. It says, "My son, if sinners entice you, do not give in." And for us as servants of Yah, we can be complacent at times and think that we have it. And there are some times where that enticement can come in. When I looked at that word, I looked at it in Hebrew, I thought it was going to take me back to the garden, when Eve said, the serpent enticed her, but those are two different words. And this word is actually patah, which means to entice, deceive, persuade, or seduce. And this was a huge deal in the Hebrew community, the ancient Hebrew community. And like you said, Elder, we're trying to get back to that. So since this is a huge deal, it was basically understood that the people who would have done this to you you will have been in social contact with them. And there would have been like a familiar relationship with these type of people. And you have like trust in these people. And you believe that these people, they have integrity. But if they seduce you, it was considered a serious breach within the community. And they're causing you to go against the things of the Father. And that's why when I was looking at this in verse 8, he talks about us being yoked to the Torah. So if we yoke to the Torah, then it'd be kind of difficult for us to be enticed or to be brought, to bring ourselves with sinners, because to be enticed is not always something that's easy we can see. Sometimes we may not be able to see it, because deception is exactly what it is. You can easily be deceived to thinking that you're doing something good, but you're not. And when I'm looking at Shalomo here, he's teaching his son, these things. He's telling us to be aware. It's like he's warning his son, like this can happen. Because if it couldn't, then why would he say this to his son? So I've always also ran that with other scriptures as well. When I think it was Shaul who talked about this as well. And 1 Corinthians 10, 15 and 33, it says, "Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good character." So the people that you are around can influence you to do the wrong thing. So it's always important to make sure that we are aware of the people that we are around, because there are certain things that people in this world, that they do things that goes against the will of the Father. And if you caught up in that, oh, excuse me, then you can easily be deceived. Or, in this world, we got this thing called guilty by association. You're associating with known criminals. There's a chance that you can be yoked in with them, and also Psalms 1:1 says, "Blessed is the
The
man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or
wicked.
set foot on the path of sinners, or is set in the seat of mockers." So when I'm looking at this, it's just like this: the person that's been talked about here is like you're deliberately putting yourself in harm's way. You're deliberately putting yourself in a position that can cause you to go against the things of the Father. And then back to James, because James is literally my favorite book in the Brit Hadashah.
But
And I love James. And James 1:14 and 15 says, "But each one is tempted when by his own evil desires is lured away and enticed." So this is what you're doing. This is a you thing. You're putting yourself in there. So if I'm caught doing something wrong, I put myself in that position because I chose to put myself amongst sinners. And then it says, then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. So you basically had this thought in your mind already, And since it's there and you didn't do a good job of trying to like finesse it off, you decided to keep it there and it festered. Now, and then it starts to grow. That seed is in your mind and you're watering it because you're constantly thinking about it. And it says it gives birth to sin, and when it is full grown, gives birth to death. And so when I'm looking at Shalomo, he's telling his son, you know, be careful who you are around, because you think that you have certain people in your life who are friends, but these people are not friends. These people are here to corrupt. And this is something that I like try to tell my children as well. It's like not everyone who says that they love you really truly loves you. You always got
Oh
to try
yeah.
the spirit of people, because some people are looking to come to they seek and they destroy, and that's part of who they are. And so us as servants of Yah, it's very important for us to stay on guard when we are dealing with people in the world. And I know my daughter pretty soon she'll be working. And so
Mm-hmm.
these are the principles that I would want to be upon her. Is like for her to be able to see it, because it's real easy for someone to call you pretty. Next thing you know what I'm saying, now in
Yeah.
your mind you thinking that they good, they okay with you because they think you're pretty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's real easy for someone to call you handsome. And now all of a sudden, your mind is going somewhere else. You didn't let your guard down. It's
Right.
like, no, that's how deception comes. It's very cunning, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and and usually it will come from people that people who you have built a relationship with. That can be your downfall. And that's why I praise Yah that my children, they do a good job of, my oldest, she do a good job of sticking with those within the community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that's been beneficial for her as well. And in that, and I think I still talk to you, brother, before you hit that. Is how do I know, um, you know, that the wisdom that I'm given is good wisdom? How do what where I get my basis for that, or how do I know that?
If we're dealing, I guess it depends on what we're dealing with, what
Mm-hmm.
specific area that we're operating in when it comes to seeking wisdom. Because if I'm seeking wisdom from you from a financial standpoint, obviously I didn't fail somewhere,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I didn't probably fell on my face. Now I need to pick myself up and come get the wisdom that I need. Or sometimes you can see something that may not be right. So now I'm gonna go seek counsel for this before I make this decision.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I know if that wisdom is good, because I believe that it would sit well with me. And if we're talking about the scriptures and living the life of a servant, then you're giving me counsel on that. It has to line up with scriptures, what you're
Good.
telling me.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Because if it's not lining up with the scriptures, then it's just like, okay, what are you giving me? So that's the way
Mm-hmm.
I see it.
Right, right. Absolutely. And I think we're echoed just like what you said. We'll use me. When you come, say, if you come to me about something, I am not making decision for you. See, some people say, if you, oh, you go, you ain't got to go to no man. You ain't got to, but I'm not making the decisions for you. I'm giving you the information and then giving you the wisdom and then telling you definitely if like you say whatever the situation most things are called for what the father says about something, but some things doesn't. If you say for instance, off the top of my head, this popped in my mind here, so I use it. For instance, if your water is running at the house, say if a pipe bursts, right? I think it might trigger your Yehoshua here, but say a pipe bursts, right? What should you have in your house? In one of you guys can, what should you have in your house?
All right. So a pipe burst, like let's say like a water pipe, like what you're saying, right?
Uh huh. Yeah.
You should have the ability to know where your main water line is and how to turn it off.
Okay. Okay. What's the best thing to turn it? to have to turn that off with though?
Depending on your connection, you may need like a crescent wrench, or you may need, some type of wrench.
Okay, okay. What is the thing that they suggest that you should use to turn that off? Now you can use that what y'all saying now. Well, what you saying,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Because Jedediah ain't jumped in there yet. He's on the safe mode. But it's I'm looking for
Well,
something
that's what
that
I
they say,
use.
yeah, okay, but and it works, right? It turned it off, but there's a tool that can be used. Is where I was going to make a long story shorter, right? There's a tool that you can buy,
Okay.
right? Whether at your favorite hardware, we're not gonna give a commercial. Your favorite hardware, right? That you use is about this, Well, I don't know how many feet. I ain't looked at it in a long, but it's
Oh, the thing
long.
with the handle on the top.
The thing with the handle on the top. Yeah, there you go. That's
Oh,
what is
okay.
the properly way to use that. They say that's what you're supposed to use, right? That's what the company, the city uses in those tools that you can buy. Now, of course, you can turn it off other. So it's good now that I know that to have that specific tool if I can afford that in my toolbox, right? So I was at the store one day.
Hmm.
I said, "No, I need to get this." Yes, you can turn it
Hmm.
off the way that you guys said, and some people may look at that as, well, I'm saving money because I can always use a crescent wrench, right? So it's according to how you look at it. So, but my point is here is you still would made that decision. So if we was out, all three of us was in a hardware store, I would ask you guys, do you guys have one? You know what? We don't even know what the name is. Maybe somebody in the chat room can tell us what that tool is. I see Anthony said tool. Maybe they can Google that real quick or something. But I can't remember what that tool is offhand. But anyway, if we was in the store and I told you guys about that, you still my thing is, even though you get wisdom, you still have a choice. You could say your host
It's
well,
called a
you
shut off key.
a shut off key.
I'm
Okay, all
sorry.
right, good. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no, that's fine. That's right. You probably beat them in the room anyway. They still looking. They slow. They no. So that shut off key, I would say you guys maybe you need to get it, but you have a choice because your host. You could say I could do it with a crescent wrench, and you can. And then Jedediah said, "Well, I think I take wise counsel and get a shut off key now." But you understand, you still have your choice. I think sometimes when people hear, I got to get counsel for this, or I need to ask somebody for this, or I need to see about this, they think that people are making decisions for you. It's nobody making no decisions for you, right? You're gonna have to ultimately you got to make a decision, live your decision, and follow. And you the one gonna be either rewarded or punished for your decisions, right? You are. So whenever you make a decision to do something, then you follow through with that, you know. Cause I could tell you, get a shut off key. And then somebody else come by and say, man, you don't need no shut off key. You need just use a crescent wrench. So which one is best? That water meter
From my
key.
experience, I would rather use the tool designed for it because I could add to my story. It wasn't just a crescent wrench. I had to
Okay.
use the crescent wrench and another crescent wrench in the loop at the top to create
Hmm.
that access for turning, which would make the same shape as this little T-shaped tool here. So definitely the tool would be better. So I'd rather have that than do the method I did because never everybody's going to know what I did,
Right, right,
you know.
correct. So
I,
if I would ask a plumber, a master plumber, he would tell me that I need that water meter key. That's what he tell me
mm,
that'd be best to get. So now that we know this information and this demonstration that we are doing, right? What you just said it. So if you in the store and you can afford it, what would you guys get?
it's $4.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, I'm just
You know.
I
saying,
get what the professional said. Yeah.
huh?
I'm gonna go with the expert.
Right, right, exactly. So we've been talking, and so before we was talking, y'all didn't know nothing about that. And I'm not a plumber expert, but I knew about that water meter key, right? So y'all would take that wisdom, and then we should apply that, right? Because for a long time I didn't have one, but I realized that it was best to have it because if something go wrong or whatever, you need to shut that. power off. And then if you just working on it, if I change my faucets, is how they're telling me just get the key and turn it, so you could take that or whatever. So how would you tell your son when he got married and he has him a house? What would you tell him to do? Get the crescent wrench or get the water meter key?
Get the water meter key.
The key.
Yeah, right. So now we have passed that wisdom on, right? We pass that on, and then they're gonna, if he does it, then he's gonna get benefit from that, right? Instead of just you don't really need that. Just use your crescent wrench on top of a crescent wrench on top of, and those things work, right? But the best thing and what they say is, and when you look it up, to even you could look it up and see if I was right, and that's what they use it for. I mean, and like Jedediah said, that's what the experts say to use. The people that made it ought to tell you how to use it, in that, now sometimes things wasn't ready available for you either when they do stuff. When they switch stuff is older, then become newer, then you learn different things because nothing stops for us. Everything is keeps on going, right? So one day we used to do this, you don't do it the same way, they do it differently. So we have to make sure that we change in that, right? All right, my brother, I'll give you a
Hmm.
chance to come up. I just wanted to, that was outstanding, Jedediah. So you could come up if you had another scripture that you may wanted to give out, and I guess the time there is getting us, but you could go ahead. Just
Oh
feel
yeah.
free though. Don't be limited on that.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. And then also with that water thing, just because I've learned a thing or two, there's two, you have two shut-offs. You have one
Mm-hmm.
that's on your property and then one that would be from the city. So just
Mm-hmm.
be, know which one you're going after, because you deal with the state, it's weird. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So which one should I
just
cut off
know,
in
just
case somebody listen?
from my experience, you should know where yours is and
Okay.
you should cut your main line to your house. It'll be
Correct.
after your meter on your property.
Right.
And
Okay.
I've got a special bib installed on mine that it's you can turn it by your hand. It's way
Okay.
easier. The one
Mm-hmm.
for the city, you're going to need that tool because it takes, over 20 pounds, of strength to turn it.
Strength.
And it's at a
Mm-hmm.
weird angle. It's very short and it's very, it's stubby. So yeah, that tool, if you examine the head on the tool, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to put a lot of torque in a very small area.
Uh-huh.
But,
And that information that we given is in Texas and in your city of Killeen, in case it might be different
true,
somewhere
true.
else. Yes. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to say as well. And oh man, I'm Jedediah again, sniped my notes. Especially with that, where was it? It was Corinthians 15. Do not be led astray. So I really like those verses as well. That whole piece from like from like verse 10 all the way down through verse 19. I really like that because again, it's that whole idea of you're getting advice from your parents. My son, if sinners entice
Mm-hmm.
you. And I think, well, with that, it's this whole idea that, elsewhere it'll say, to heed the discipline of your father and not to forsake the Torah of your mother. So this idea again of like you were saying, from father to son, from mother to daughter, from parent to child. And it's that whole idea. I've seen sometimes they'll have pictures of like, and I mean, I don't dress this way, but for those
Mm-hmm.
who understand, it's like, it'll be like a dad putting on his tie and then his son next to him, not knowing what he's doing, has a big old knot around his neck. And it's this idea of I'm imitating you. And we're really needing to, as adults and not even just, parents, but as adults, pay attention, because, even Kifa gives instruction, when he was talking to the wise woman, he was talking about your adornment should be inwardly, so we have all these different things, from parent to child, and it's important. And if we guard their instruction, that we'll understand how to navigate boundaries. And that's one thing I think it will keep us safe. It'll protect us, is really, because the next verse will say it's like a fair reef.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I've learned, and similarly to a little bit nuanced from what Jedediah was saying, is when you do have this Hebrew youth and they're learning from you, when they get out on their own, hopefully they'll say, I remember my dad. I remember the brother in the assembly. I remember my teacher. Somebody explained this situation to me,
Mm-hmm.
whether it
Mm-hmm.
be marital interest, because like Jedediah was saying, if the right person gives you a compliment, it could destroy, all your armor will just disintegrate. You think you're the toughest person in the world, like nobody can get to you. Ah, man, I love my wife. Ah, she loves her husband. Sometimes somebody could just give you a look and you're like, whoa, what just happened to me? But if I'm
Mm-hmm.
guarded, if I'm protected, and I have that model that my parents gave me, it'll be easy for me to copy what they taught me. And we do that in all sorts of ways. We teach them how to pray. We typically, one thing I like is conflict resolution. So we teach them how to make things better. Sorry, I really need to take a sip.
Yeah, it's all right.
We teach them how to do appropriate attire and style because as Hebrews, we don't dress like the women and men of the world. And like you were saying earlier, we give them the common sense survival skills. And most importantly, we teach them set apart behavior. We teach them about the love, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, meekness, gentleness, self-control. Those things they're not going to get elsewhere. We're giving them those things. We're teaching them how to give. We're teaching them what it looks like to submit to authority. And when you have all those things, like you said, it's like a reef around your head, which is really just a symbolism, as it will protect your mind, your heart. All this good instruction, all this good teaching, it'll be like a helmet. It'll guard you. And you'll remember that the ways of your parents will forever be on your mind, and they'll be like a chain. They'll bind you to them, and then you'll have a good example of father like son, like mother like
Mm-hmm.
daughter, not the wicked version, but the good example. Oh, wow, they told the truth just like their dad. Oh, they're generous just like their mom. They're
Mm-hmm.
giving just like the people of their assembly. So I really think with that whole verses 8 and 9, it's really good. And then down to verse 10, as my brother was saying, we know evil company corrupts good habits. So here's the contrast. Again, this is what makes it a mishle. It makes it a parable. Here was what it looked like if you listen. Here's what it looks like if you don't. And if you run with people who are of the world, I really like the way Jedediah was explaining some of that. Is I experienced it. I mean, I didn't grow up Hebrew, but the reality is, if I don't have an identity, I will forsake it for something I want. So that idea of being enticed is really, really important, because the people in the world want you to forsake your identity, and yeah, they want you to be just like them. And it's super important. That's what it means by being corrupted or being enticed or being deceived. And their invitations seem like they make sense, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And that's what really gets us, is that one people with corrupt business practices, how do they get so many people to fall with them? Well, it seemed like it was the right thing to do. It's the same thing with people being enticed with sinful behavior. To do so, I'd have to consider that their ways are favorable. And many people in the covenant forget that we're set apart and that we're peculiar, that we're different. We don't acquire wives or husbands the same way the world does. And the scripture even says, husband or wife, how do you know that your faith will impact the faith of your spouse?
Mm-hmm.
So there's sometimes people have this idea that I can entice someone to become good. Okay, well, let's pay attention that most likely someone can entice us to do evil. We really need to be aware of them, because they'll cause our heart to run, you know, and we need to remember we're just not of this world, and that lawless living is very enticing. And if we are surrounded with people of the world, it can open up us to a lot of trouble. And, we don't want to share in those rewards. And what really gets me about this particular piece of scripture, because down in like 17 through 19, it tells us, it gives us a little bit more. It tells us greed of gain. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're after
Mm-hmm.
something.
Right.
Pull it up right here. So what gets me is like the greediness is a trap, you know? And when you have that feeling, it should be obvious. It should be obvious that my desire towards this individual or towards these people is wrong. But it can be very easy for us to be blinded in that area. And what really is so just, I don't know, just shocking about it. And I said, this is something that stood out to me this time going through it, was that they said they're going to lie in wait and they're going to ambush. They're going to be they're going to be taking something from someone. They're going to be stealing or robbing or killing, something of that nature, right? What gets me is this, the contrast is who's the one they're doing wickedness to? The wise, you know? So here goes here's what's going on. It's again, the contrast is they're taking something they didn't work for, versus when you look at the wise individual, they put in all the time and the effort. And again, so this idea for me is it's also talking about taking shortcuts. If we try to take shortcuts, we're gonna end up not having the completeness of the reward. You know,
Good. Good.
we don't want to be the people that, you know, that do what we, you know, become good at deception, become good at cheating, become good at taking things that don't belong to us. You know,
Mm-hmm.
taking credit for something is a theft. When we come up with something, we need to give credit to where it's due. So I thought that was something that reached out and grabbed me. But again, where it says, I love this part. In verse 17, it says, in vain the net is spread in the sight of a bird, in any bird. So for me, it's like, okay, so if it seems obvious to you, I mean, to a bird that I'm about to, you don't set a trap right in front of someone you intend to trap. So it's like in the old cartoons, like there's a big red X and it's like, hey, stand on the X. It's obvious. It's very obvious. Something bad's going to happen if I stand in this position. The idea for me is, to the person who's aspiring to become wise, these evil desires should be very obvious. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you seek to take from others, you're really taking from yourself. And in verse 18, it says that. It says they ambush their own lives because it's a pursuit for you to go after someone else's possessions, or to defame someone, or to steal, whatever your negative desire might be, whatever mine may have been. If I have desired to take this from someone else, really all I'm doing is harming myself. And in verse 19, it says that such are the ways of everyone greedy for gain. It takes away the life of its owners. Greed kills the greedy. So it's very important. And that just was something that was awesome to me. And I don't want to like open it up because, like you said, you said not to worry about it. Never mind. But the next part is after that is in verse 20, where it talks about wisdom being loud in the streets and everywhere. And that's something I've learned from myself.
Mm-hmm.
If you go look for the wisdom, you can find it in shortest words. Like we were saying earlier about how to get advice. Well, you go to the people who have the wisdom from Yah, and it's super important. And there was another verse that came up to me about this whole idea about greed takes away the life of its owners. Yeah, taking advantage of people. I believe I said that. Um, there was something I had right here. Yeah, I think I said that in more or less. So yeah, that was pretty much it for me.
All right, all right. Well, okay. Hallelujah. I think that was good, and I think what we has expressed today was definitely outstanding in that. I think you stopped at like verse 21. So we'll kind of get ready to end it. Did you have anything, Jedediah, from verses 21 through 33?
No, sir.
Okay, okay. All right, all right. In that. So we appreciate everyone that's still hanging in there with us. in that, and hopefully that those that listen to this, that it can be definitely an encouragement. I think we really, really hit some things, and like you said, there's several verses that is that we have, even really maybe didn't get to, but that would have been good. We could have went a long time, of course, in that. And then, of course, on tonight at the assembly, we got roast kadesh. We'll be able to get together, those of us that can, and so that'll be a good thing as well, in that. So, okay, in just a couple of words, what you want to leave somebody with? We'll start with you, Jedediah. It's so much in this Proverbs, not just Proverbs 1, but anything that you just have on your, a couple of words on your heart that you just want to leave us with. And then soon as he finish, Yehoshua, you can go right behind him and then we'll wrap it up.
Oh, yes, sir. Just going on this journey for the 31 day Proverbs challenge is something I've done the last couple of years.
Hmm.
This year's, I know it's going to be different for me because I'm actually going to be writing it. I haven't had a chance to
Oh,
write it.
okay. Good,
So
good.
this will be my first year doing it. And I'm actually going to do both. Like how you said, I like how you changed it and said it could be any verse you can do in Hebrew.
Hmm.
So writing each chapter every day, taking 30 minutes of my time to write it out. And I think that it's gonna it's gonna hit different this year.
Hmm.
Reading going through the Proverbs because there's just so much wisdom through here, the things that needs to be applied, to my house and my household. And even at the point right now, you talked about writing out the Torah.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
something I probably going to take that challenge maybe towards the end of the year. But my
Hmm.
wife is doing it right now. She started
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So if she doing
Hallelujah.
it, I got to do it.
Yeah, yeah. We
Uh,
we send her some Bengay over there. She gonna need it.
yes, yes. End up with carpal tunnel or something.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good, and I just praise y'all that our community is doing this, and I hope that it also reaches out to others that either want to join us or do something like it, with their own
Yeah.
flavor.
Sure. Hmm. Yes. Exactly. Beautiful.
That's good. I mean, it's really good. I just think meditating on what we'd already said is just what's on my heart. So I have
Yeah.
nothing to add.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, all right, may you gentlemen be strengthening. Maybe we'll see you a little later, but be strengthening and in the rest of your week, of course, in that. And I think it's going to be good. Again, like to put emphasis on, just go to the website and send an email or whatever as you finishing or something that you want to do in that. Send us an email. Let us know that you going and you riding with us in that, and I think it would be good. And see if you're going to be a finisher with us. Just a focus point, and of course you can do anything else aside. Some people read through the whole scriptures in a year. We do different things, and it's only something that to try to get us to motivate to do things together. So I appreciate you. Thank you, gentlemen. I think you did good. I don't know. I'm full and I'm satisfied. Hallelujah. And so I hope
Praise
others
God.
will be the same. All right, brothers. So looking forward to seeing y'all soon. Hallelujah.